Hi, everybody. Welcome to Real Talk with Rick, the podcast concerning all things Eden Prairie and the city of Eden Prairie. So on this episode of Real Talk with Rick, I have a conversation with Bob Stark. Bob Stark is a 30-year-plus employee in our Public Works Department, Streets Division. And in the Streets Division, he does a lot of work, obviously, with plowing and street maintenance. And he's also our city sign technician and guru. So you're going to hear a lot about streets and roads and in the city of Eden Prairie, and it's probably a good time to be discussing that. We just came off of the snowiest February in the history of the state of Minnesota, or for sure Eden Prairie. And so Bob talks a little bit about that. You know, I will say, Bob is someone, when I'm talking to him, it's like we're having a conversation. And Bob might not realize, even though he should, that this is going to air on a podcast. So he throws a lot of just names out there in the middle of the podcast. And, for a second I thought I might need kind of a glossary on the front end, like in a Game of Thrones book or in the new Marlon James book I'm reading, to provide a kind of a glossary at the beginning. But when you hear Robert, you'll hear that quite a bit. Robert's our Public Works Director, and you'll hear Gene, and Gene used to be our Public Works Director, and you're going to hear the names Dwight and Scott and Gavin, and these are all people that work with Bob. But either way, Bob's got some great stories to tell, great conversation, and here is my discussion with Bob Stark.
Hello.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to see you.
It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. So, Bob, what do you do for the city of Eden Prairie?
Kind of a lot of different things. I mainly right now, in probably the last 5 years, title of sign technician, but really, as we all joke and say around there, is a jack of all trades. I'm able to do the concrete work too, and blacktop, and certainly run equipment. 34 years has given me a lot of experience, and but mainly signs.
Mainly signs. You're in the Public Works Department. You are, like you said, sign technician is what is
yep,
at the bottom of your email. But so within the street division of the Public Works Department for 34 years.
Yes.
So that's like you said, that includes a lot of jack of all trades over the years.
Yeah.
So signs. We're going to work our way back to snow because it is a very, very snowy season. I want to talk a lot about snow, but let's talk about signs first.
Yes.
So maybe people are not aware that in the last, I think it was like 10 years, there's a federal mandate that all cities, including ours, have had to replace each and every single street sign, right?
Yes, yeah. And, they kind of backed off on that a little bit. It's been the news, some of the smaller municipalities, money-wise. But, with Robert here, we basically stayed with the program. So
Robert's our Public Works Director.
Yes, and it's almost done in the sense where we've changed everything over from engineer grade signs, which really were the standard back in the day, and then now you have choices between the diamond grade or a high intensity prismatic, and that's where we're at with the HIP. It's still a better sign, but the diamond grade's a little more expensive. So
letters are bigger. It's brighter. It's more reflective.
More reflective.
Are we all getting older? What's the deal?
Yeah,
with that?
That's kind of what they say. And I think you mentioned the letter height. They're bigger signs, but that's relative to the letter height.
Okay.
And so yeah, there's that, and certainly the reflectivity is the big issue too. Classes that I've been at. So
well, here's the neat thing, and I try to tell people that we aren't replacing the signs so we can just sell them to our residents.
Yeah.
That actually came up after the fact, and we actually we'll admit it. I think the idea was stolen from St. Louis Park.
I think so. Yeah, we'd have to ask Lori Creamer.
Lori's our sign sales expert,
yes.
But there's been kind of a hit in town, and you are you're the curator of the signs. So talk a little bit about that fundraiser, because I think when people are done listening to this podcast,
that Lori's doing.
Yes,
I know a little bit about it. I mean, on my end of it, it's really just I'm cataloging them for her essentially, and work with her that way. And then in a roundabout way, we've had to take over the storage of them because there's so many of them. But I believe that she's using some of that money in the Heritage Preservation Commission,
right.
or whatever.
Right. Projects.
So, and actually I can say, in between the snow plowing and everything else that I've been doing, I've never seen so many. In fact, before I came up here, I dropped off another dozen signs for her. Right. So it seems like every other day or every day there's something new. So it's what we did before with those is we got the aluminum, we don't refurb them, but we use the scrap aluminum money would come back into the budget, but this way it's still coming back to the city, but in a different form, through the sales. So they're using it for the heritage. Right. So
no, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So we were replacing these signs anyway. Yeah. There is the idea that we could sell them mainly to our residents. I mean, anybody can buy them for $20, $25 a sign. They can have them. I've had all these different requests for, obviously, the signs of the street that someone grew up on. Or I think it was like Senator Swedzinski. He was a few podcasts ago. He wanted Constitution Avenue.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah. So there's this desire to buy these signs, to have these signs, to hang them up, to save them, to have them, to give them as gifts, and then the money's going toward a city preservation project. It's really cool.
Right, absolutely. And I was going to say that, like this winter, kind of, I don't know, so much a joke, but it is kind of is that we're certainly getting enough in the aluminum with all the snowstorms. Cars hitting signs. It's been crazy this
More
winter.
Replacements. So
yes,
that'll lead us into snow, Bob.
Yeah.
Here we are at the last week or close to the last week of February. And I think last week, Minnesota had the snowiest February ever?
Is
it ever?
Yeah, right with today's Friday. Yeah, so Wednesday, Thursday, storm, whatever. Yeah, that's snowiest ever, which I was kind of surprised at.
Yeah.
It goes, I think they only had 1962 was the most before, but
over 30 inches.
And then now tomorrow or tonight even a little bit, and tomorrow.
Wow. So you've been busy.
Yes.
But you're not worn out yet. It's all good.
No.
you enjoy it.
Yeah.
I hear you. You've been doing it for the snow part for 30 some years, right?
Oh yeah. I started, right away when in my beginning year that I actually got hired on December 24th. That's kind of every year on Christmas Eve, I'm like, oh, this is the anniversary date. And even Alicia was a little surprised, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I did. I looked and saw that." So literally,
Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think it was actually a Monday in 1984. I have to look back, but I just totally remember that. Got hired on a Friday, and my first official day was Christmas Eve. So
okay, that had nothing to do with you weren't trying to get hired so you could have your second day of work off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but no, I got into it right away, and. You're thrown into the fire, that's what it was back then.
So back then, we'll come up to the present day, but back then, so when you said 84, I guess probably October of 91 might stand out a little bit.
Well, that was just a crazy day. We were actually paving out at Riley Lake on one of the projects that they've had out there, and it snowed. Everybody's like, oh yeah, a little snow, but it didn't stop. It was just on, and finally our boss at the time, and the paving wasn't going very well because the base, the gravel and everything was like a sponge because it was just that snow was wet, moisture.
Yeah.
And I do remember that very well, and we're just like, this isn't going to work. And we're like, we look at the snow and everywhere else, we need plow equipment on the truck on Halloween. We're like this. So I remember that night, everybody came back, and you put blacktop stuff away that we were working on, and then all of a sudden we're scrambling to get plow equipment.
Okay.
Luckily back then we didn't have as much. Now we've got the wings on the plows now, and our liquid tanks and such. But that was a crazy day. And
days,
days, and then. And if we remember right, Rick, I can't remember. I know it was the first part of November. We got hit again. I think it was 16 or 17 inches again, the next week.
The next week. Maybe people don't talk about that.
I think that's what gets lost in it, But, yeah, it was crazy. And the problem with that snow, too, is is it's that wet snow. And so we had a lot of hard pack. And I remember Gene Dietz, our public works director from back then, I know the phone was ringing because that stuff just packed down, and you couldn't get it off. And we struggled with washboard roads for quite a bit.
I would imagine the whole state did.
Right, everybody. Yeah, MnDOT had the problems too, and Hennepin County obviously in town. And what we did then, and we were more of a sand salt mix. Is now we're straight salt, and that would have worked great, obviously, but the way we were back then, we're such a small community at the time, and hadn't really we did use salt, but like I say, it was more of a 60-40 type more sand than salt.
It's interesting. If I think about even 84 when you started, 91 talking about the Halloween blizzard, now it's 2019. We are much bigger. We're more developed.
Yeah.
And obviously there are more streets, but I'm still picturing probably in the early 90s, you still probably had to go, all the way east toward 169, all the way west toward Dell Road, north past 62. Maybe all those housing developments didn't happen, but you guys were still on a lot of those other roads.
Right. I think I know what you're kind of getting at, and some of it, is the connecting roads. Like look at how 212 now, because I know that was, I remember, this big swath of land that, someday there's going to be a road there. Well, there were a lot of dead-end roads that ran up to that. Where now, we have these connections, and it's the town is a lot more navigable. It's better, east, west, north, south, as it was back then. And I can tell you one of the first times. One of the senior guys was sick, and that was my first foray into driving a truck. It was that would have been 85, so maybe let's say March. And they said, "Bob, you're on that route," and it was. I can hardly remember the roads, but it was down off Bluff and in the southeast part of town, which was still there were fields, and that road zigzagged through there. Well, it was one of those. It might have been 10, 12-inch snow, and it was that heavy wet, and it was just, I'm like, wow, this is what you want to do, And I mean, but I remember like Larry Doig, a guy where he's like, well, you got to go, and that's what you did, and I can still kind of picture that day. I remember it a little bit, and but like you say, with that road, you had to kind of meander your way to get to that, where now you go out to Bluff Road, it's all developed,
it's
and
all
beautiful,
developed,
and.
So that reminds me. So anyone listening, they might not know kind of how everything's set up in Eden Prairie. So we won't think about the 20, 30-inch snowstorm, but we'll think about maybe the 6-inch one, 8-inch one. Actually, in Eden Prairie is close to like 9 this week. But whatever. On that snowstorm where it's the typical snowstorm in our city, how does that work, Bob? It's like we were laid out in quadrants, and people have routes. And how many? Describe
the routes.
How does that work?
Yeah, the routes are kind of, if I'm hearing you right, they're kind of tied to some of these main roads, and like I can give you an example of mine, which is I like it because of this. It's pretty straightforward and easy to understand. But essentially, I start at Fire Station 3 at Valley View and Eden Prairie Road. And I take that all the way to 101. And then we've got the railroad tracks that run at a diagonal. And so I have one small neighborhood that's cut off by those tracks just on the south side. But so essentially everything north of those tracks out to Dell and 101. And that is mine. And then just a few neighborhoods north of Valley View. So out to 101.
So basically... everyone has a route. They have an area that they head out to. And then there are times when, like, you're a veteran.
Yeah.
You've been here a while. We talked about your first day in 85. But there might be somebody on a route this is the second time they ever plowed it. So people kind of help each other out too, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. The whole plow thing is about a team. And it's, We've done a lot of work, including with Gene Dietz, our former public works director, where these teams were set up, these routes were really tweaked, and they have been tweaked over the years. Hey, this would be better if this guy took this section, along those lines of what you're kind of saying. With a Dell Road or a Pioneer Trail, main roads, or Eden Prairie Road, dissects the city north south. But where we've got plant operators. That come in either before shift or in their days off even, that'll plow cul-de-sacs, because we've got, I forget the number, but I know it's 800 or 900 cul-de-sacs. So to help, we get really all hands on deck. And when you do finish your route, that is the thing, back to that teamwork thing, like you say, to help out,
So you have some people driving the bigger trucks on the route.
Yeah.
We have people who work at our water treatment plant or in utilities that are out in pickup trucks with the plows cleaning up cul-de-sacs. We have park maintenance people, on our trails and our sidewalks. So it's a team effort. Now,
Really
I'm thinking,
is.
now I don't know how long the route you're talking about, that Eden Prairie 101 kind of, what do we call it, northwest maybe part of the city?
Yeah.
So did you get to know like people on the streets or residents over time?
Yeah, kind of. I'm
leaving you like candy at the
a
end
little
of the
bit.
Okay.
For myself, we always joke about this. When we're out there in the summer or whatever, and I do know a lot of people. Some of it is just, I don't know. I've just gotten to know some people, and some of it, I did play a lot of softball, so I know a lot of people. But
well, we're gonna
Dwight and these other guys are always, Bob knows somebody. There's Bob over there talking to somebody. But yeah, I've been known to do that.
You get to know people
and I'll tell
in the
you,
city,
and
of course.
honestly, Rick, I've joked about it, and I do say this, but I do honestly find it an opportunity to open a door with a resident. I really do. And I really honestly mean that. And it's interesting because I've shared that story with people, how, they like, if we're out doing concrete prep, they're like, oh, you guys do this mill and overlay. And yeah, and they, they're fairly astounded, really, that we do like a maintenance program like that, but also too, I I'll say something like, well, hey, how is like the snow removal and stuff out here, or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially if it's in my route, I want to know.
Oh yeah,
and then
and
and I'll tell you what, I did have a guy that he was upset with other things that were going on, but I didn't get too far with him on that, other than I let him say his piece, and he had mentioned, I tried with the snow plowing, but that went south pretty quick too. And
what do you mean?
He says,
like,
well, you guys you never plow our street.
Never.
And I listened. Yeah, that's what he said. And I listened to him. And inside I have that little internal laugh that helps us, like not get mad, right?
Right.
And so, but then I told him, I said, well,
it's
sir,
nice that we keep it internal.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, much appreciated.
And, and I just said to him that, I go, well, I said, I'm the guy that plows your street. And you can see how they change. They're looking to just be upset, or this guy was at least.
Yeah.
But I assured him that I leave every day, when we're here. If it's still not snowing, usually sometimes it's still snowing. Yeah. but yeah, that it's been done, but he was one of those guys that he's had some issues with things that were going on,
and we're not perfect. I talk about this where we do hit mailboxes. We do make mistakes. And I think the great thing about the city is, I remember one of the first calls I took as a city manager was someone who called and said, you took out my mailbox when you were plowing. And I said, my apologies, that'll be replaced.
Yeah.
And the person's response was, that's much appreciated. Thank you. I don't think that was expected. And
Sure.
It doesn't happen often.
No.
But yeah, you're not
Right.
perfect. It's about doing the best you can.
That whole process, we've really refined that, where when we do it, we've got little door hanger things even too, and we let residents know, which I think is really it's something simple and small.
Well, thank you. You're right.
But yet,
that call I got might have even been. It's a good point. It's not. We're not going to wait to get. If we do something, we're not going to. Oh, maybe they'll call and then we'll do something. You're right.
Exactly.
You put a door hanger on there.
Yeah, and even I'll tell you, even today now, where it's gotten really good with the drivers and people is. You come up, and I've had it happen too, where you see a mailbox down, you're like, hey, you tell the boss, hey, over here at so-and-so address, we saw a box down. Because some people do have, they have contract plowers, a lot of people, and, they're flying around too, and it happens. Or you get a car, a resident, whoever, maybe going on the street, and they slid and they've hit them. So, because the first thing is they think the city plow did it. That's normal. I get that, and they're like, oh, well, he came by and hit it, but So I will, if you mind, I'll tell you this really quick, because that same story, I had a gentleman who I know in the past, maybe not happy with there might have been a little bit of snow left here and there, but he flagged me down. That was a couple years ago. And I noticed that day. In fact, I did what I just said. I called my boss, said, hey, this mailbox is down. And so he says, hey, you hit my mailbox. And so I got out of the truck. And I knew that, he had waved his arms at me several times before. And but again, same thing. I kept that internal, that laugh going inside. But so he took me over and he said, he says, you hit this. And I said, well, I didn't. I actually called this in. I was down your street about 3:30, 4 o'clock this morning, and I saw it hit. And I said, if you notice one thing too, sir, I plow this way, so let's say it'd be, just for the sake of this, nobody's in here with us, right to left. Yeah. And I said, this was hit left to right, someone's driving. And I said, and if you look at your neighbor's front yard, there's a whole big gouge of sod taken out too, and where they pushed a bunch of snow up. I said, I think it was the guy that plowed your driveway. And he stopped and he looked at all of that and reasoned, and he looked at me and he says, you're right. I said, well, I'm just surmising that, sir, because I know I personally, I would have told you, because we fixed that. He goes, oh, you guys do? And I said, yeah. If I would have done that. So with all that said, we were out there actually looking, me and Gavin Giles were out there looking at a sign that was down right in the area. And then I told him, I said, hey, we'll get the stuff we need for the sign. And all the mailbox needed was 3 or 4 screws. Came back, fixed the sign. Well, actually, probably fixed the mailbox first. I mean, we just literally picked it up, buzzed the 3-4 screws in, and we're going to head to fix that sign right there. And he came out and say, hey, and I said, hey, sir, no problem. I said, it was just a couple of screws. We couldn't even have been a minute, to do it. Yeah. And I know I've told you this, and it's funny. He goes, you should run for mayor. And I just laughed. Yeah, it was funny. He thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But, it goes back, the point of the story, what we talked a little earlier about is, hey, you get a citizen, he might have been down on the city. Maybe it was because of the way I plowed and he didn't understand, or you know what I mean, and became an opportunity to really make a friend, you know what I mean, and it made his day, and it sure gave me a laugh, because I thought, geez, Bob Stark, the mayor.
Bob, that makes me laugh really hard.
I know, Rick. Yeah,
that's a good one.
No, but it was all good.
I think about this. We had the recent Facebook post about meet your plow driver. Yeah. Bob the plow driver. Yeah. And there's 30, 40, 50 comments on there. We love you, Bob. We love the city. We love the plowing. And there might be 1 or 2 that have had concerns, but I don't know many cities that are going to be putting information out that could draw in criticism, which is fine, but that's not what we got. Sure. We got really positive responses to everything that you guys do, and there is a crew. There's a group of you that are doing this every day. With plowing. It might even be 2. You talked a little bit about street maintenance, and I want you to talk about that as well, because it's not all plowing. No, but we do. We got a really positive response to some of that, getting to know your plow driver. I think we had you, and then Larry's been on there. You mentioned him, and we might be doing
I bugged
a few more.
Of the other guys, to get on there too. And,
personalize it a little bit, right? Personalize it.
What do you mean?
The idea with that, getting to know who the people are.
Oh, it does.
Of course, everyone knows you apparently, but they don't all know Larry and Kevin and Dwight and Gavin.
I think it was a neat idea, and I was Katie had mentioned to me about trying to get some other guys, and I did. I worked at it, and I get some of the guys wanted to maintain their low profile, or so they said. But
low profile.
But no, and I think you stay with it, and I think in time somebody else might come around too, And I mean, I know, and we've been busy too, by the way. So
what?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. What do you mean? So I think I can get 1 or 2 more guys, that can do it, and
we don't. It's okay. We don't need we don't have a set number of people. No. I just think people appreciate kind of knowing the face of the person. But you're right. You can keep a low profile. Street maintenance too. Yeah. Because like you said, jack of all trades and other work. So mills and overlays and
Yeah,
crack filling and seal coating, and
we've come a long ways with all that. And I want to say, and I've certainly said this to Robert many times, that he's come in and we've had those programs in place, but Robert has, and I've told him this, he has just taken it, another level up. And it's a tribute to him, number one, and the guys that I work with, Mike Schmidt, who's now my supervisor, even Larry Doig, Dwight Clement, these guys, Brian Pint's another one too, that guys have brought up these ideas and things, and Robert has been very progressive. These different Texas underseals, things like that.
Okay, Texas underseal.
Yeah.
What's a Texas underseal?
So Texas underseal, really, in a quick nutshell, is we grind down a little deeper. It's a 3-inch mill as opposed to an 1.5 inches. And when they do that, it's you're taking that seal coat rock, the rock everybody hates. They shoot, so they mill it down at 3 inches. They shoot the oil, and then they put the bigger rock. It's like a 3/8 rock down, and let that sit for a day. And of course, some of the residual they do sweep up a little bit. Some of the loose rocks that are with that, and then they put the fresh 2 or 3-inch mat of asphalt over the top of that. And that's where, on some of these roads, like a Dell Road, where he's seen great results, less cracking in the roads. And Robert has actually presented on that. I know he has.
Yeah.
And it's a little more money, but, I mean, when you're thinking about it, whatever that, I don't know the number costs on it. It's not like outrageous breaking the bank, but if you're going to get that much more out of that road because of it,
over the lifespan, it's actually a better deal.
Over the lifespan, yes.
Why Texas? Is it like something that came out of Texas?
I suppose. At that part, I got to be honest with you, I don't know as much. I think it's done in the South a lot more, is what I think, because the heat that they deal with on those roads. I think that it's just, because really, if you think about it, what happens to roads up here is the ultraviolet and the elements are, if you look at a road, it's always black, right? That's nice and black and dark. But as you see in a year or two, it fades. That's the oil leaving what the oil which helped to hold that together is leaving the pavement, and that's what helps it to deteriorate or causes it when they start losing oil. And in that underseal, you're putting more oil back down underneath. I don't know. I'm not an engineer, but just a guess.
No, I know.
And I think that it helps with the flexibility too, because obviously, and we all see that now this time of the year, the roads are moving like crazy. So, but that's been a big one. And then the other one, and I told Robert, again, one of these customers, people that I know, out on Cardinal Creek. That was a couple years ago. A gentleman, super nice guy, came out, wanted to know what was going on, and I explained to him, and that in and of itself, I wasn't real sure either. I knew enough to tell him, but when it was done, I was really impressed with the fog seal. A fog seal essentially is the same thing I just said. They're putting oil back over the top, which I didn't know that they did. I'm like, wow, that's the fog seal. And so seal coat rock down, sweep it off, and then they come back and shoot just the same oil, or a little different oil. I take that back. It's a little different and not as much. And really, the road looks like it's been paved, as opposed to just seeing that seal coat rock.
The rock that gets, obviously embedded back into the road, and it does not have a new road look feel to it.
Right. And this guy was weird that I had went to a funeral, and lo and behold, this guy was a friend of the person that I knew, and it was like, he goes, "Hey, you're the guy from the city of Eden Prairie." And he tells me at this wake, he says, "I love the road." I mean, I know it's kind of a weird story, but I told Robert, and he's like, "Wow, cool." Yeah. But he said that, and so that's great to hear, when you're getting that positive feedback. And I think the other thing with that fog seal, and I know that we've all shared this, and I'm sure that I have with Robert, is that people hate seal coat. I know that you probably know that too, Rick. The phone rings because like, oh, really? Do I have to have that? Why can't I have new pavement? But when they put that fog down, because kids are on skateboards or rollerblades or whatever,
walking
any of that.
Yeah.
So
Strollers.
you don't really have that loose rock issue, because when you shoot oil back over the top, you're really sealing that in again, and we found in the spring, where Robert has seen a road where we didn't fog but seal coated it, you'll find in the plow has scraped a little bit of that off, and that's going to happen in the gutter lines. But you look at a fog seal road in the spring, there's minimal, if any, at all, and so it's a win-win. Again, you're spending a little bit more money, but in the long run, you're getting a much better road, and things. It's going to hold up longer. So
no, I think
and so that like I say, Rick, that is, I really mean that when I say it. That's a tribute to Robert, that he is willing, to be progressive and try these things, sell it to the council,
right,
and get those positive results.
And get the positive results,
exactly.
and get the feedback from all the people out in the field and the residents as well. And we want to. You're right. You said we try to be innovative, sustainable, and efficient, and offer value.
Yeah, absolutely. No doubt about it. And the value part that you talk about, Rick, is back to what I said earlier in conversation. People, and it's good that Eden Prairie is able to do this, because I know a lot of cities, they do have overlay programs. I get that, but a lot of citizens say, well, I got to pay for this. I said, well, you're paying for it essentially in your taxes, but there's not going to be another assessment. Mm-hmm. To have the overlay done.
Correct.
Right. And because honestly, I've had that at least 50% of the time or more when someone approaches, and they say, well, I got to pay for this. Well, yes and no.
The no part is, and coming from Hopkins as well, and there were seal coating projects, but this complete reconstruction and even some road maintenance would be assessed individually to the homeowners.
Right.
And you would assess them, and you would have a hearing, and they would have a specific charge on their personal tax bill. In Eden Prairie, we have completely avoided that, with the exception of the first-time construction of roads. Or there's still, roads that aren't yet, up to full urban standards that we'll assess. Yep. But when we come back, whether we're going to do a seal coat or a mill and overlay, following that, we don't want to assess that and plan. No. We don't plan on assessing that. You're right. Yeah. Whether it's a franchise fee or part of the property tax, but that's a big city council thing as well.
Yeah,
we want to avoid these $10,000-$15,000 lot assessments for.
Yeah, and Robert, I know, has talked to us about that too, and I know he's involved in that. I imagine working with the council and So, and one other thing too, I know I've said a lot about Robert, and I want to make sure that I say this, because I was talking about the plow team stuff, and because I have so much respect for Robert and things that he's done and when he's got here. I mean, I love working for him, and that we had that plow team stuff, but when Robert got here, he got us all together again too, and he again took us to that next level. Mm-hmm. He really did, and it shows now, in this month, as we've talked with the snowy month, that, he's just reinforced all that with everybody, that whole team, and again, the water plant operators, the water plant mechanics, and certainly all the outside utility guys too. They've always been a part of it, but just that everybody, and all the park guys too, because part of that deal, the parks, they do have their own stuff, as you said, with trails, but initially they are part of the barrage, if you will, that first 12 hours of a storm. 12
hours of a storm, right.
Where they're essentially under the control of the street division manager, so they're really, they're coordinating through their own bosses too, but really.
It's kind of all hands.
Yeah, all hands, right. But I did want to say that, because I didn't want to be remiss in that Robert, came in and just helped us, even more, and taking, which is good, because that's what you expect, have when people come in, that take a look at what we have, and then asking people, are there things that we can do? And that's akin to what we talked about with the pavement stuff, is we always had that, with the prior administration, but now Robert, boom, raise that bar, Texas under seals, fog seals, so.
Mm-hmm. Good. No, we're there'll be something else in 2 years.
Yeah,
or 3
absolutely.
years.
For sure there will.
Now there's this question of the environment, balancing the environment, right?
Right.
And the polar vortex of a couple weeks ago, and the ice. And it was funny that I got quite a few emails about, are you holding back on salt because of the environment? And it's interesting, because I think we put down 10% of our entire supply of salt in 2 days.
Yeah.
And we were out there several hundred tons, right? 300 tons of salt or something.
And I was one of them. And we've talked a lot about that, and also too, with that said, we have been really Eden Prairie has been proactive with all the operators of the big trucks, where I have a certificate, that we've got from the watershed, and I know that's a political subject, good or bad for anybody, but
it's
I get
it's
it.
an environmental
but,
balance.
Exactly, and I get it.
Yeah, and
right.
we have some equipment technology where it isn't kind of just a massive dumping of piles of salt.
Exactly.
It's still using sodium chloride,
Yeah.
but there's new technology and new methods and new delivery systems to make it so there's some thinking behind it, but you're still using it.
Yep, and I'll go back. That starts with Robert again, and the equipment that he's allowed us to purchase or through the council, and brine is big, and I remember when we did start brining, everybody had tanks, and I'd like to think maybe I had a small part in it too, because I was being outspoken about it. I mean, I said to people, like, we're in a lunchroom, I go, I'm using brine all the time, and you know what? And Mike was doing that too, our division manager. But, it's kind of like getting people, you got something new, it's getting people to buy into it. And now there isn't a truck that's not using his brine. You know what I mean?
Liquid brine,
and that brine, again, for people that might not know, but it's already activated, at a more friendlier, how would you say, a solution, and yes, we still put granular down with it, but I can tell right away when I first started doing it, it's got to be 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, wow, that is activating fast, and so yes, like you say, Rick, finding the balance and not, because here's what I say to people too, is that it was really good training. I get that. I didn't realize myself even that it is, in the long run, it's really not good. I'm not Greenpeace. I'm in the middle. I'm not. Yeah. But there's people that don't want you to use it at all.
Right.
And boy,
it's a balance.
It's a very tough balance.
You need to have safe streets. And you need to have passable streets, but you do not want to pollute your rivers. And I mean,
where would the Prairie be, right?
Right. That's a whole nother podcast. But,
exactly.
But Bob, no, I'm looking. No, we can't. No one can see you. They can only hear you. But 34 years with the city, and it looks like you probably came here when you were like 18, 19, 20 years old, Bob.
I was 23.
23.
Yeah, because I'm 57. Yeah, that's
so you're 34. A big chunk of your career.
Yeah, I spent a lot. Yeah,
I'd like to hear about you personally a little bit. So, are you from around here?
I'm from Bloomington. Prestigious. I always say
prestigious.
No, prestigious. I know. I joke. Yeah, okay. I tell that to Larry because his wife went to Jefferson. So, and they were it was Kennedy was kind of. We thought, well, that's the East End and
East Side,
and then Jefferson came along. We're like, oh, we kind of call them the cake eaters of Bloomington, but yeah, it was Bloomington. I look back now. I was pretty active in sports too in high school. I played football, played hockey, and I was in track. And people don't know I was a pole vaulter.
Whoa.
And I actually went to state in the pole vault.
You did.
I don't know if you knew that. Rick.
I did not know.
I got fourth.
I knew I'd learned something today.
I got fourth
really?
place. Yeah, believe it or not. And it was. I think a lot of people are like, you pole vaulted.
Well, see, there's a question I'll ask, like, what have you done that nobody would know? You answer that
there
without
you go.
even asking it.
Yep.
And so this is when was this track and field earned? When did you earn this?
Well, I graduated in 79.
79.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was at state in June of 79. So.
Okay. I'm not saying that because I'm going to look it up to verify.
No, no. I got the pictures.
Okay.
But here's a weird story for you, and ran into him this summer. Again, a citizen who's a huge developer in town here, Scott Carlston.
You played hockey with him.
Played against him. So. I saw him, and I first thing he says, "Hey, how you guys doing?" I said, "Good." And I said, "Hey, you don't know me." I did one of those, not like, "Hey, don't you know who I am?" It was
the
a
opposite
reverse.
one. I like that. The reverse.
It was a reverse.
I like that.
I was being humble, right?
Yeah, you were.
So, but Scott. I don't know that you know this, Rick. There's something you learn about Scott Carlson. He is an excellent hockey player in high school. He was I
did know that.
Of the three high schools that year, he graduated in 78. Was a stud. That's what we called him.
Yeah,
Scott Carlson was a stud. Went to UMD,
and
got
I think
a scholarship.
He had some time with the St. Louis Blues. But
he did, yeah. And So what I did was, he says, "Oh, really?" And I said, "You're Scott Carlston." And I said, "I'm Bob Stark." I said, "79 from Lincoln." He goes, "Oh my gosh, Bloomington guy." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I played hockey, but," I said, "I was nowhere near your." I said, "I was a lot on the bench watching you." I said, but I told him a couple guys' names that were our big studs. They played Division I as well, and they graduated in '79. Okay. Two guys. Jim Russian and Mark Ossendorf. In fact, Mark Ossendorf lives in town here.
I don't know Mark, but was Russian an Olympian?
No, I don't think so. No, but another interesting tidbit there, his brother Steve Russian is the writer for ESPN.
I know who that is.
Yeah, and he's written a lot of books.
Yeah, he has.
Yeah,
I did not know that. So you graduated
with Jim. Yeah,
and then is Steve older or younger?
Younger. He's younger. Okay. I never knew him. He's quite a bit younger, but yeah, so
like my age,
huh?
Like my age?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Okay.
But I told Scott, and he goes, "Oh, so you're with Russian and Oz?" And I said, "Yeah, and I said those guys were, buddies." And I said, "Oz lives in town," and he says, "Well, I said, "I know, Scott, I know you do. It's Martin Blue and this and that." So it was just funny,
It was. I like that. But
it again, it was an opportunity. How could I not remember the guy? I was an athlete, and I respected him. He was really good. So then here he is now.
He's here. You're here. So Bloomington guy, and then so between Eden Prairie and '84 and '79, you were a restaurateur.
Well, yeah, I had a job in high school, and nobody would remember this, but a buddy of mine, it's always, you got to have a buddy that gets you a job, right? So a good football buddy of mine got me a job at Le Bistro Cafe. It was in Edina by York there. And, the old man was always, "Get a job,"
Yeah.
So I did, and worked there. And then went to Mankato State for a year. But, the thought, was always, you go to college, right? But I was one of those guys that just never really, what am I going to do when I get there, and you flounder around, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to go back, and then, so, of course, you get back, the old man's like, you better get a job.
So if you're not going to be in college, you better be working.
So, went back to Le Bistro, I started working, and then in time, they're like, I'm a good worker, and worked hard and learned fast, and the guy that owned it actually was Berman Buckskin. That goes way back. But he owned this restaurant. His dad owned Berman Buckskin.
Okay.
And his name was Neil Berman, the owner of this Le Bistro, and he had this grand vision of expanding. And he says, "Bob Stark, I want you to be one of my guys," and he opened a place. Was opening one up in Rochester, not far from Mayo and all that.
Okay.
And that would have been like 81-ish maybe. And so I did that, and I thought, hey, I think I want to do this, and it seemed really fun at the time, and then I went up to Fargo, and we opened another one there, La Crosse, Wisconsin, and he was really doing this, and I'm like, so I had this vision.
What kind of food was it?
Yeah, it was light French, like he had crepes and quiche and things like that, and of course you got some American stuff too, but I don't want to say that he was over his head, but a little bit, but whatever. But that was what I did, and then. For my last thing for me, I did come up and I worked at Ridgedale. He had one up by Ridgedale as well, which is now a Champs restaurant, actually.
Oh, I know that Champs is.
Exactly.
Okay.
That used to be a Le Bistro. That was actually one of his better stores.
Was it that large? Did it take up all that space?
Because
I've never been in one.
Yeah, I haven't maybe been in that Champs. Yeah, I think I did just because I wanted to see what it looked like because I remember what it was a Le Bistro way back in the 80s. But anyhow, worked there for a little bit, and then I'm like, I'm not going to do this. And then a friend of mine I met in Rochester moved up here and got a hold of me, and he actually ran Olympic Hills Country Club which is here in town.
Yep.
And he was a couple years in that, and then he says, "Bob, why don't you come work for me?" So then I did that. Not there very long, maybe a few months, and then that led me, actually, this is a great segue, it was right around May, June of '84.
Okay.
And I don't know what it was, but I was looking at, maybe it was the Eden Prairie newspaper or something, and I saw that said City of Eden Prairie hiring in, like public works job or something. And thought, well, what the heck? So that is how I did. I went in and applied. Yep. So it was a seasonal job that was, the city paid like $1 something of your wage, and then the rest was paid by Hennepin County. So it was one of these kind of work program things. It was a 6-month deal. So I knew that there was a limit to my time, but once I got here, and being the guy that I am, I work hard and I learn, And I kept bugging Jerry Pradell, who's passed, God rest his soul, but great guy. And I said, Jerry, do you think they'll ever hire anybody? Well, I don't know. And and I just kept bugging him, And I do remember too. I went in. I even bugged Gene Dietz one day, and I said,
"You're looking for a full time."
Yeah, I went in and I just said, "Hi, Gene. My name's Bob Stark. I work in streets right now as temporary, seasonal, whatever." And I said, just wanted to put a face to the name and that kind of thing. And if you're going to be looking to hire anybody, I'd love to work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I don't think it was because of that, but that was the time they were hiring people here, like in parks, utilities, and streets.
Probably in the police department too.
Right,
I mean,
absolutely. Oh yeah, it was the beginning, and I've always told some of the younger guys. I said, honestly, you guys, that is how I got a job. I mean, part because I worked and the guys liked me and wanted me, but and it was, I want to say, like Tom Herman, who's still here, and Tom Stowe, who's a manager. Parks, Those guys were in like 85, like January, February-ish, March. So we were almost like all brothers right around the same time, even though I was December of 84, technically. But because Parks, they were doing the same, and it was just boom, 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 guys coming in a lot. And then these cornfields being plowed over, and developments being built. So
and the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history, Bob.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in. Any last words before we wrap up?
I'll just say this, that and it's not the end of my time here, but it's this place has grown into. I said this to Alicia a million times, and I know that I've said it to Robert too, that where we've come from, and it's no disrespect to the past, but it's an honor to it because we've taken those things and we've made them better, even, and that is what I always feel like we do here at Eden Prairie, and along with that, the people too. We have good people all the time, and to make a better product, for the whole city and every department, and that's what I could say.
No, I appreciate that, and I actually want the last word, or actually the last story, because this is very timely. I just heard about this. We talked about it being the snowiest February on record here in this current year. And our street department had a visit from some local third graders. Tell me about that. This just happened within the last day or two. I want to end on this.
Within a couple of days. Senorita de Villas, I think we were trying to, she put her name on there, but yes, her Spanish immersion class, and gave us those little candies. And
it was what was sent to you, what was brought to you, I heard, was a snow plow driver survival kit.
Yes.
Survival kit.
Yes. And the neat little a Tootsie Roll as you roll on down the road, I think, is one, and the Starburst for a burst of energy. And I like the peppermint one, with peppermint for your commit mint.
Nice.
And you got, I don't know what's another one on there, but it was really neat. Very well done. And I mentioned to Robert, and I did to Alicia, that I brought in a thank you card back to them as well. So we'll send that. And then maybe talk to Mike and see if we could set up with her that maybe we could get Larry. He's really a good person for that, is get a plow truck and drive over with the thank you card, and the kids could see the truck kind of up close maybe at their class.
Oh,
it would be kind of a neat thing.
Yeah, because I'm looking at, it's kind of a big card here, and it's got the whole picture of the class, and it says, Snowplow Driver Survival Kit, to the City of Eden Prairie Street Department. You keep our roads clear all the time, driving all hours of the day. We want to thank you for what you do, but don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoyed this little gift we give you with a smile to say a great big thank you for driving each and every mile. Yeah. And then they give those candy items, Bob, that you mentioned, and tie it to something the kids came up with. So that's just awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And what could seemingly seem a small gesture, actually, I say this all the time too, is that it goes a mile. It's huge, to get any of that, and even the positive emails that we get from you guys up here, from citizens
we pass them
that
on.
pass on.
We do.
And then what I just happened across yesterday in the Eden Prairie News, someone else commenting about how good we do, and it means a lot, because I will say at the end of the day, every person that's out there that's plowing snow for the city truly really cares about what they're doing and wants to do the best that they can do. every single time that they're out there. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, are you heading like to Mexico anytime soon?
Well, probably not this year. And
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I think.
No,
I
either
think-
way, warmer
yeah.
weather would be
Yeah.
nice.
It would be great. Yes,
It would be nice.
Yes,
and
it'd
you
be
can
great.
head to warmer weather. We can wait for warmer weather.
Yeah.
But thanks, Bob, for coming on.
Hey, thank you. It was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you.